Many of you are here to say Happy Mother's Day to your mother, and we're so glad that you are with your mother today. In fact, if we were to say, okay, mamas, what can your children do for you on Mother's Day? I have an idea one of the top of the list would be sit with me in worship. And so it's great to see you today. And yes, we are talking about mothers today, but not so much the mothers themselves, but it's how can we honor the mothers? Oh, it may be washing the dishes, it may be vacuuming, but how can we honor our mother? How can we honor our mother? Many places in the world celebrate International Women's Day. That's March the 8th. Several March the 8ths I spent in Ukraine, and Ukraine, being part of the former Soviet Union, they celebrated International Women's Day. And the way they celebrated it there was just, if you're a woman, you're made to feel special that day. It wasn't unusual to see a young man carry around a bunch of flowers, and to the women he would then see, or his female friends, he would just hand them one. It wasn't about mothers so much as about women. Now, as I looked up International Women's Day, I found that it was originally associated with women's rights and kind of the suffrage movement, getting the vote, etc. Not so much used that way in Ukraine at the present time. But Vladimir Lenin made an official holiday in the Soviet Union. The United Nations began celebrating International Women's Day in the International Women's Year, 1975. And a commemoration of International Women's Day today ranges from being a public holiday in some countries to being largely ignored elsewhere. And in some places, it is a day of protest. In other places, it's just a day that celebrates womanhood. But it is and has been more so associated with the Soviet Union and now those former Soviet states. But we know about Mother's Day, and that's the second Sunday in May. Now, the modern Mother's Day began in the United States, and it was the initiative of Anna Jarvis in the early 20th century. In 1914, Woodrow Wilson signed a proclamation designating Mother's Day, held on the second Sunday in May, as a national holiday to honor mothers. Now, it's kind of interesting to me that although Jarvis was successful in founding Mother's Day, she became resentful of the commercialization of the holiday. By the early 1920s, Hallmark Cards and other companies had started selling Mother's Day cards. Jarvis believed that the companies had misinterpreted and exploited the idea of Mother's Day, and that the emphasis of the holiday was on the sentiment, not profit. As a result, she organized boycotts of Mother's Day and threatened to issue lawsuits against the companies involved. I find it amazing that she was the one who helped to found it and then later protested it. But the reason? She felt like the mothers weren't being honored. Jarvis argued that people should appreciate and honor their mothers through handwritten letters expressing their love and gratitude instead of buying gifts and pre-made cards. The influence of the American Mother's Day is felt around the world. Remember, it started here. But yet it's the case now that many countries have adopted this very holiday, Mother's Day, on the second Sunday in May. And many other countries celebrate it, a Mother's Day, but at varying times of the year based on their religious traditions or cultural or political traditions in that country. You know, some things I'm glad that America has exported. And I'm glad that America's exported Mother's Day. And aren't you glad that there's a Mother's Day? Read in our presence already. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, for this is the first commandment with promise, that it may go well with you and that you may live long in the land. There it is. Honor your father and mother. Now, I know someone might take a step back and say, wait, preacher. This is not a Mother's Day verse. There are no Mother's Day verses in the Bible. There is no Mother's Day in the Bible. And that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. Mother's Day is not a religious holiday. Mother's Day is a national holiday. But I would suggest to you that the Bible presents honoring your mother as a lifestyle, a way of living, a 365-day-a-year thing. I'm glad that our country has a Mother's Day. But honoring mothers, according to Ephesians 6, verse 2, is just the way you live. This would be kind of similar, would it not be, to Thanksgiving Day? And aren't you glad that America has a Thanksgiving Day as a national holiday? I am. But it's not a religious holiday. It's not a holiday, as it were, that you find in the Bible. Thanksgiving is a Bible concept. But if we've limited Thanksgiving to one day of the year, we have missed the concept of Thanksgiving in the Bible. Thanksgiving should be, once again, a lifestyle, a way of life. Something that's ever present in your hearts and in your minds. And so it is with honoring your mother. It ought to be something that's ever present in your hearts and in your minds. Proverbs 23, verses 24 and 25. The father of the righteous will greatly rejoice. He who fathers a wise son will be glad in him. Let your father and mother be glad. Let her who bore you rejoice. You know, as I look at this, it's like the proverb writer is saying, make your mother happy. As I go to Proverbs 31:28, and that, of course, that worthy woman. And you get down to verse 28, her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. Her children rise up and call her blessed. So once again, we see the idea of honoring mother. Once again, honoring mother is a biblical concept. No, not limited to one day a year. And Mother's Day is a national holiday, not a religious holiday. But honoring mother is right. Now some don't, sadly. Some don't honor their mother. Look at Proverbs 15, verse 20. A wise son makes a glad father, but a foolish man despises his mother. He didn't honor his mother. Proverbs 30, verse 11. There are those who curse their fathers and do not bless their mothers. Again, these don't honor their mother. Proverbs 30, verse 17, a few verses later. The eye that mocks a father and scorns to obey a mother will be plucked out by the ravens of the valley and eaten by the vultures. It's kind of like, watch out if you scorn to obey your mother. But as we think in terms of, okay, we have a Mother's Day as a national holiday. More important than that, the Bible is spoken of honoring your mother. How do you honor your mother? How do you honor your mother? How do you honor the mother of your children? Okay, there's the gifts that you may give. But is that really how we honor our mother? I ask some mothers, if you were going to write down how is it that you would wish your children to honor you, and how you'd wish the father of your children to honor you, what would you say? You know, of the answers I had received, almost every one basically said, let my children live the Christian life. That was the number one way of how the children can honor their mother. No, it wasn't a gift. In fact, I don't even remember seeing a gift on that list. Now, children, if you want to give your mama a gift, that's great. Give her something, though she wants, not that you want. But more important than any gift she may receive is you living a Christian life every day that you live. Now, when we say live the Christian life, we're not speaking here about the mom. In fact, all the moms that I asked, they were Christians. We're talking about, rather, the husband and the children living the Christian life. And when the mother is a Christian, there is no greater joy than knowing that her children are living Christian lives. You know, this means everything. This means everything to her. But I suggest to you it means everything in the sense of the life of the child. It's not just I go to church on Sunday. No. But it's a faithful Christian life 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year, and year in and year out. Now, these are the words of one lady. She said, seeing my children live the Christian life, raising their children with God's help, brings me more joy. And after I'm gone, I pray that they will continue on the heavenly path, and that my grandchildren will be faithful Christians. That means more than anything else. Years ago, I was attending the Getwell Lectures in Memphis, Tennessee. I guess at that point I would have been in my mid-20s. And I heard the speaker. And it wasn't a point that he whispered, but he spoke loudly. And I think he might have even banged the pulpit. But his words were, I would that my child would die on the mission field. And I'll be honest, when I heard that, I thought, I almost, if I was standing up, I'd have taken a step back. I would that my child would die. He said, on the mission field. Well, then I found out the backstory to this. This was a faithful gospel preacher. And this was a man who himself had been on the mission field. But this was a man whose son had spurned the gospel and Jesus and living a Christian life. And I know what was then in that man's mind. My son, like he is lost. If my son were to die on the mission field, probably means he's a faithful Christian. And he's giving his life even for the gospel. And oh, to know that my child will be in heaven. Living the Christian life. Yes, that's how we truly honor our mother. Now, living the Christian life means more than taking your mother to dinner. Okay, do that. But living the Christian life is more than that. It's more than sending your mother a card. Okay, get the Hallmark card if you will. Write your own. That'd make Miss Jarvis happier. But living the Christian life means more than that. It means more than giving your mother a gift. Okay, do that too. It means more than helping your mother with a task. It means more. You living the Christian life means more than you telling your mother you love her. Number one, how do you honor your mother? Live the Christian life. Number two, how can you honor your mother? Obey. Obey. You know what mom stands for, don't you? Must obey me. Ephesians 6:1. Children, you know how it starts. Obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. In Proverbs 6, verse 20, there you find, my son, keep your father's commandment and forsake not your mother's teaching. You know, in the book of Malachi, God's very unhappy with his people. In Malachi chapter 1, verse 6, he there says, a son honors his father and a servant his master. If I then am your father, where's my honor? Are you following this? He's using honoring the Father as an illustration of honoring God. Then he says, if I am a master, where is my fear, says the Lord of hosts to you. O priest who despised my name, but you say, how have we despised your name? By offering polluted food upon my altar. But you say, how have we polluted you? By saying that the Lord's table may be despised. When you offer blind animals in sacrifice, is that not evil? And when you offer those that are lame or sick, is that not evil? Present that to your governor? Will he accept you or show you favor, says the Lord of hosts? You know his whole point here? The words only matter if the words match the actions. They were going through some motions. They were saying some of the right words. But in the process, they were being disobedient to God. Just a moment, we're going to make a point about, telling your mom you love her. But I want to tell you this. You've got to get this right too. Obeying your mother. Now, there may be times when you're younger. You may think it's unreasonable. You may even think, well, my friends don't have to do that. But still, we need to take a step back and say, God tells me, children, obey your parents. And even as we're older, we know that the relationship changes somewhat. But yet still, we need to be careful about this very thing. Proverbs 23:22, listen to your father who gave you life, and do not despise your mother when she is old. You see, it never stops. It never stops. A third thing we might say is, in honoring mothers, is say, I love you. Now we know when we go to Ephesians 5:25, husbands, love your wives as Christ also loved the church and gave himself up for her. That's talking about what we're to do. But I would suggest, say it. Say it. To the mother of your children, that's your wife. Say it. Say those words. I love you. And children, tell your mama you love her. Okay, let the words match the actions, but still they like to hear the words. Now, I'll be honest to you. If somebody were to say, Steve, what do you wish that you had done better with regards to honoring your mother? My mom died in 1983. I was 25 years old. She was 53 years old. And this and the next, I wished I had done better. I honestly don't think I told her I love you consistently and as often as I should. And my mom was one of those ladies that loves to hear those words, I love you. And so whether or not you're 5 years old, 15 years old, 25, 35, 45, 55, 65, and you've still got your mother, make sure she hears those words from you. I love you. You live the Christian life. You obey your mama, but also tell her that you love her. And I said two things I wished I'd done better at. One was saying I love you. The second was keeping in touch. After my senior year in high school, that summer I was away most of the summer. Then in the fall went away to school. Was back the next summer. But then after my sophomore year in school, was away during the summers and really never back at home to live again. Back in those days, as hard as it may be to fathom, long-distance calls were not a regular thing like they are now. In fact, because most phone plans, even a home phone plan, and all cell phone plans don't really have long distance, I'm not sure that many of young folks even know what long distance means anymore. But it was the case that a long-distance phone call would cost you more. In fact, I didn't keep in touch with my parents so good, but now those 4 months between December and then my wife and I marrying in May, I spent a lot on long-distance phone calls. In fact, we both did. You added up what I spent and what she spent, it's probably about $250 a month. And that was in $1980. So in other words, we were spending maybe as much as $500 to $700 a month. Hard to comprehend it could even be that much in long-distance phone calls. Thing about it is, I called my wife-to-be. I wasn't calling my mom so much. Then later, of course, we were married. And again, we weren't living near my parents. Busy about having a new wife, busy about graduate school, and then preaching down in South Mississippi. No, didn't keep in touch like I should. How do you keep in touch? You know, today sometimes it can be just a matter of a simple text. That didn't exist back at that time, but it does now. And while it may be that your mom would really love a phone call where you speak to her, you know, even a text is keeping in touch. And then the visit. And it may be, as an adult, you live in town. It may be that you live out of town. But no matter the text, no matter the phone calls, you don't quite understand how much you honor your mother when you visit her. And then keeping in touch, the hugs. Oh, by the way, that's the problem with a text. You can't hug her. And that's the problem with a phone call. You can't hug her. But oh, she appreciates the hug. Keeping in touch. You remember Bear Bryant? He did a commercial for the AT&T at the time. And here were some of his words. One of the first things that we tell our players is to keep in touch with their families. And when our freshmen first arrive, we ask them to write a postcard home right then. You know, we keep them pretty busy, but they always have time to pick up the phone and call. And it's really important to keep in touch. And then he always added this at the end. Have you called your mama today? I sure wish I could call mine. And you know what? I would say that from a personal standpoint. Asking you, have you called your mama today? And yes, I sure wish I could call mine. And then last, a way to honor mother, just I'll call it pulling your weight. You know, it may, Don't make mama's life more difficult by being a slob. Now, that this is living at home. This may be going home for a visit. Help her. You're busy? Well, she's busy too. Maybe it's help washing dishes. Maybe it's help vacuuming. Maybe it's help, just keeping the room clean. That's not a clean room. Happy Mother's Day. How do you honor your mother? Come back to number one. First way is by living the faithful Christian life. If we could encourage you to get started with that today by obeying the Lord in baptism. Oh, by the way, you're not just doing it because of mama. That may be a part of the motivation. You do it because you want to put the sin behind you. You appreciate the sacrifice made for you as Jesus died on the cross. You recognize you're saved by God's grace and you want to go to heaven. If we could assist you, if you're that believer who's turned from his sins, we could assist you with that baptism this morning. If there's a need for prayer, we ask that you come as we stand and sing.